a robust 120 plus years.
But to stand on your head for 3 hours a day, number one, who has the time? I don't.
There is that, certainly. And you have to know how to do it. I mean, it's not like just...
Yeah, because too many people over the years have really hurt the vertebrae in their neck.
Oh, and if you've never done it before and you're up over in your 30s, you could kill yourself with strokes.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't go into this without really knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I was fortunate and started yoga at a very young age, so I do get up and do headstands, and it's not a problem for me.
Yeah.
I don't do 3 hours because, again, as you point out, who has the time?
Right, yeah. And obviously it works on you because, look, I mean, in all seriousness, you're a very bright guy with fantastic ideas, where I feel like some bump on a log where I hope nobody comes along and chops off the bump, you know?
Well, I wish you wouldn't put it that way. It is true I've got a certain amount of energy, correct.
Yeah. And what I would suggest, and all you people listening, do not go out and start standing on your head. If you want to do something, do what Clif just said. There are 2 beginning exercises which you should continue, and that is one with your feet at about shoulder width, just bend over and just let yourself hang. And also,
if you need to, put your hands on the ground or a pillow or whatever.
Yeah, because I can't reach the ground right now doing that.
You wouldn't want to be pitching forward if you were a little unsure.
No, you don't want to. And then also sit on your butt with your legs together straight out and just bend forward. And then periodically, like every day, building up, because, we'll get sued if 500 people have I didn't want, but lay on your stomach off the edge of your bed and let your head hang down below your heart. And do it gradually so the vessels within your brain get stronger.
Well, there's also the other issue, and that is that within the legs of humans, we have all these little tiny valves, and that is what allows us to maintain our blood pressure. And they're one-way valves, and we pump our blood back up through segments. It's not like our veins are 100% continuous tube, and so you literally need to strengthen those because the actual mechanism helps you out later on when you do headstands or shoulder stands or anything where you get your legs up like that.
Yep.
The release of the pressure on those valves allows them a little bit of breathing room, and so to speak, and they get a little bit stronger. But they need to be strengthened before that.
Absolutely, and especially in the brains.
Yes.
Oh my heavens.
Well, this is quite true. You run into this in the martial arts world, and we have to acknowledge that I've done martial arts for a number of decades. Mm-hmm. And those people that get into it, there's a whole number of exercises that age 52 I would not touch. I know they would be fatal.
What did you study?
I've taken, my favorite is Aikido.
Okay, I studied Aikido and karate also. And
I've taken Taekwondo and Shotokan.
Right.
Now I'm moving into some of the more esoteric forms of Wushu and Kung Fu, some of the internal styles where I can do them in the few minutes I have between computer programs. I was very, very lucky. Of
course, this is kind of a diversion from what we're supposed to be talking about, but I was very lucky. Back in 62 or 63, I was living in New York City, and I saw an article about a guy who came over from Korea. IBM brought him over here, and they put him through Columbia University, and he was studying, and because he was very, very bright. And he was at a bar one night, and a lot of the members of the Columbia University football team were there, and they had been drinking, and they started to make fun of him because he didn't speak English very well, and he didn't want to get in trouble. But 5 of the guys started to mess around with him, and he put 4 in the hospital, and 1 he hurt.
Ooh.
And I read that article, and I had a roommate who I'd gone to prep school with, and I said, I want to know what he knows. Well, his name was Richard Chun, and he was the world champion in Aikido.
Yeah.
Years late, so I studied with him for several years in New York. Years later, I was living in Portland, Oregon, and I was teaching at Lewis and Clark College, and the president of the college and myself, we had a class that we taught together, and he brought over a fellow by the name of Koichi Toei, who was the world master of Aikido.
Yeah, who studied with Ueshibe.
That was his master, right? And who started Aikido.
Yes.
And he stayed over there for 5 months, and we got up at 5 o'clock every morning, went down and practiced Aikido with him.
Man, what a gift.
So, two things. I studied with the world champion, Richard Chun, and then I studied with Koichi Toei, who was the world master of Aikido. So I was very lucky.
And I studied with one of Toei's students, Tanaka Sensei. He came over to Evergreen here a while back, and marvelous. Age 72 and was just flipping us around like we didn't even.
Oh, I know it. When I was out in Portland, I had two of my students from my mind development class from your area in Seattle, and they owned a gym, and they came down for one of these demonstrations. Cliff, I'm telling you, one guy was about 6'4", and the other guy was 6'3". These were bodybuilders, weightlifters, and fantastic athletes. And Koichi Toei, who was about 5'1", stood between them. And he said, in his broken English, "Pick me up." And do you know these guys together could not budge him?
Ooh, I love those exercises.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Now, interesting, because here we are, we're getting into an area which truly does fit in with everything we've been talking about tonight, and that is the power of the mind, the direction of energy. Years later, I put together a program that I teach the mental aspect of golf. And a lot of my techniques that I teach to pro golfers primarily, but other golfers too, is stuff I learned from Koichi Toei in Aikido. And one is that energy follows thought.
Yes.
And I'll never forget the old guy who I affectionately call him. I saw him give a demonstration with 5 people trying to fight him, and he was flipping them in the air, and he never touched them.
It's incredible. True master like that, yes.
So,
and I've been uke and nage in both situations, and being flipped like that by someone who really knows what they're doing. You're charging full bore.
Yes.
If it was done wrong, you would hurt yourself, and yet here they are. They sort of like this little fellow, 4 foot nothing, lifts you up in the air. You don't even feel them touching you at all.
That's right. Yeah.
And if it's only the year-long training that prevents you from smashing into the wall and injuring yourself, but they were ever so delicate in flinging you those 19 feet across the room. Unbelievable.
Now, let's kind of gear this back, Cliff, to the runs that you have done and are doing.
Yes.
What does it say about the future development of humanity, where we're going, what we are going to be able to do? Because this stuff that we're talking about, the martial arts, has been around for hundreds of years, if not over thousands of years. Yeah. Where and what does it say about humanity's potential? Maybe not where we are or where we will be, but at least what our potential is.
Well, if we go back again to the Sanskrit, they say once you reach a certain point in terms of the number of humans that are dipping out of that bucket, you get this crescendo event. And their description of the crescendo event in many ways could certainly be applied to the times we find ourselves in. And one of the things that some of the Sanskrit literature alludes to is that in this time of where you have the same number of humans as you have the brain cells in a single human, or about 10 billion, we're going to get to the point where literally a new form of consciousness will evolve, simply because we have enough humans available. And that one of the little problems for the gray guys is that they were told by their masters to get us up to that point, allow the transition to occur, and then sort of clean up the mess afterwards kind of thing, right? But they've been fiddling with it and causing stress and so on, so that we never quite get to the crescendo event in the way that we should be getting there. Because imagine a situation where our whole planet with 10 billion people, and what if we had all gone to your form of mind training schools, or if we'd all done Aikido, or we're all doing yoga, or whatever it was that fit for all of us, and we weren't, burning our brains out on neurotoxins like aspartame and TV. Well, we would certainly have a different society entirely.
Boy, could we ever. I mean, can you imagine, number one, the problems that the youths of today have worldwide, they would not have.
Correct.
The opening of the just forget the spiritual aspect of it for a minute. The opening of the concepts of the powers that they have within them,
individually and collectively. Yes.
Yes, my gosh, wouldn't that?
And here we're not even teaching our kids mind control. Rather, we teach them this insipid, watered down, as you say, deliberately dumbed down material in our schooling.
Yeah.
So now let's go back to one other enlightened individual, Mark Twain, who said, "It's a wise man that does not allow his schooling to interfere with his education."
Isn't that true?
And isn't true? Really is, and we find that a lot of these wise and if we want to call them enlightened individuals also fit